Hi, we're Group 16. Our app is an app that lets you search for stock tickers that you want to watch and also add them to a watch list to keep track of them. When stocks are added to this watch list, you can add notifications for them based on key metrics, such as when the price goes above a certain point or below a certain point. Firstly, I'd like to bring up our search feature. This feature allows you to search for new stock tickers that you'd like to keep track of. In our app, I created a alpaca client class that is a singleton design pattern. This search activity grabs this alpaca singleton and calls it to send network calls. After submitting text to this search, you can see that it narrows down the list of items that we have that contain this user string. So let's go to Apple.
This page was designed to show useful information about the ticker. The goal is to show information necessary for the user to make a trade or not. As a result, we present 4 different time periods for the user to see this information. We use the adapter design pattern in order to connect each fragment with a tab inside the main activity page. Each page presents opening, closing, high values, and low values. Daily page shows information about the daily market values alongside the chart. The weekly page presents information about the weekly opening, close, and high and low values. And finally, the month and year page present information about the month and year respectively.
We have a toggle for each of our stocks, of course, that allows the user to add it and remove it from their watch list. And we use the repository style architecture to store the ticker information to create our watch list, which will be pulled from later. Of course, the toggles will persist on or off depending on whether you're watching that ticker, and will show you that it is now in our watch list. So Jonathan will now talk about.
Yeah, from an implementation perspective, we are pretty careful about figuring out where we wanted to add layers of abstraction. So for our case, the scenario was just we wanted to decouple the specific market data API we use with the rest of our application code. This sort of manifested in the adapter pattern, where we created an adaptation layer interface on top of our application logic that let us slot in any adapter implementation as long as it fulfilled that interface. And what that means from like an engineering perspective is that we were able to swap out implementations to use another API if needed. As for the current implementation, it's an adapter that fulfills our stock data interface, with the underlying network calls being handled by the alpaca client singleton we mentioned before. And we were really careful about how we built this from a dev experience perspective, as well, to make sure we don't have any inconsistencies if we wanted to like swap over to different third-party functionality. And we're also very careful about making sure that all of this is unit tested, because it's like not functionality that we are maintaining from a third party's perspective. We're going to hop to Adil talking next about the watch list.
So the watch list is a critical part of our application. It allows the user to see the current value of the stocks that they're interested in or favorited, or they have favorited. All the user has to do, like Uzair showed, is select the tickers that they're interested in, and it will display the price of those stocks without the user having to search for them individually. As previously mentioned, we use a repository style architecture for the watch list. This perfectly met our criteria for the watch list because it was a central data store that kept track of which tickers the user is following, and it's essentially a central body of information, and it stores data in a central and long-term place, and other components can interact with it. The struggles I ran into with this was that I had to integrate with multiple APIs, such as a shared preferences API, in addition to, like, for example, the Alpaca API as well. And there were some issues, such as like making API calls on the network thread. And there are also some UI bugs I ran into, which prevented full scrolling of the items in the watch list. We also made sure to make sure that the non-functional properties were covered, such as usability. The watch list is really easy to use, intuitive, and also easy to navigate. So now I can hand it over to Arif, who can talk about notifications.
So notification preferences allow users to decide what type of notifications they want. They can choose if they want price alerts or volume alerts. This gives users flexibility in what alerts they are receiving. If users expand the card by hitting the purple button on the right for price alert or notification alert, it shows a list of stocks. Users can decide which stocks they want notifications for. So the way our notifications work is that we have a background service continuously running to monitor a user's stocks. If there's a drastic price change, then the user would be notified. We use an event-based implicit invocation architecture for this. Having this as an asynchronous service frees up the main thread, allowing for other work to be done. For the purpose of this demo, we have a button here that changes the value of a stock. It would be hard to show the functionality with real-time data, as we can't predict how drastically a stock's value would change. So what this button does is that it manually changes the value of a ticker, and that in turn triggers a notification. So if we hit the change demo price, so we get price alert, that demo is up 4%. And that essentially concludes how the notification functionality is done.
So overall, we're very excited with what we were able to develop this term. This app meets all the functional and non-functional specifications that we set out to achieve, while being simple for all levels of user experience. And we really hope that an app like this that's really simple and intuitive can bring new investors to the market.